Just keeping an eye on it.
Putting on our pretty faces.
Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Yes. Hello, hello. Let's wait for a couple more minutes for everybody to join us. Happy to see you here. Hi, guys. Hello, say hi in the chat. Feel free to share where you're from. We are super excited to see you here today. It's been a very long time since I was here last, and since we got together at our teacher development webinars. And so today you already know that it's kind of a special webinar because we have so many amazing speakers here with us. And let me just quickly introduce each and every one of them to you. And I'm sure that you are all very excited because today's webinar is dedicated to our amazing content team at Novakid. So please welcome our speakers. Let's start with Adrian. Adrian, as many of you know, has been with Novakid for many, many years. She's actually one of the first teachers here at Novakid. She's working tirelessly on developing content. She's currently a senior content manager in content department. She's got years of experience and lots of wisdom to share with all of us. Please welcome Adrian.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Alex. I have to do a special shout out for you.
Very, very nice.
But it's so great to see so many old faces and names. Yeah, nice to see you all here. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you, Adrian. Next up is our amazing Kate. Kate completed her PhD in applied linguistics. Pretty impressive. And she has been working in ESL content developing and in EdTech since she graduated. She's got years of experience as well in ESL, teaching in Japan, as well as teaching applied linguistics in Birmingham University. And before joining Novakid, Kate worked as a curriculum and content developer for another EdTech company. We are very pleased to have Kate in our team. So please welcome Kate.
Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to meet you all, and thank you so much for coming along today. I look forward to meeting you all later. Thank you.
Amazing. Very happy to see you, Kate. Next up, our fantastic superhero, Joss. Joss has been working in children's education and related fields for around 18 years. Pretty impressive as well. Most of the time, most of this had involved working with kids face-to-face, but in 2018, he decided to change his career path and switch to online teaching. That's when he joined Novakid. And since 2021, he joined the content team as the proofreader. Welcome, Joss.
Thanks, Leona. Hello, everybody. Nice to see some familiar names and faces too in the chat box and some unfamiliar ones. Nice to meet you.
Super. And last but not least, please welcome our amazing Olga. Olga also is our content superhero. She has a degree in foreign languages and pedagogics. She's got many years of teaching experience in ESL industry. She's the methodologist. She has been involved in online education since 2017, developing online content and doing research for one of the biggest edtech companies. She also is a part of the fantastic content team at Novakid. Please welcome Olga.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be the one to represent my team at this webinar, and I hope that today we will have an amazing time together.
Thank you very much, guys. I'll say this one more time. I'm extremely excited to have you here. This is one of the most special webinars, I think. But without further ado, let's quickly go through our agenda for today. So we'll start with Adrian. She'll do a bit of a warm-up for us. We'll answer a few questions to just get a better idea and a better understanding of how big or how small the content team is, the content department. She will answer some of the questions that we have already gathered from you guys, from our Novakid teachers prior to this webinar. So hopefully this will shed some light on some issues or concerns that you might have regarding content. We'll then pass over to Kate, who will tell us all about scope and sequence of Novakid curriculum, the backbone of it all. Then we'll move on to Joss's presentation, where he will walk us through the content creation journey, which is also pretty exciting. And then we'll move on to Olga's presentation, who will tell us a little bit more about unit review interactives, extra practice lessons, and needs improvement exercises that are so important for our students' journey. Then we will wrap up with a short Q&A. Hopefully the time will allow us to do so. And now I am going to share my screen and pass the floor to Adrian. Okay, just give me a second. We will. Okay. All right, so you should be able to see the presentation right about now. And please welcome Adrian one more time.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's a miracle that I didn't start speaking with my mic on mute, because that's what I usually do. So I think it's, yeah, I know. So I think it's because I'm really excited to see you all here. I can't believe what a fantastic turnout we have. It's really nice that everybody wants to see and hear more about the content department. We're very honored. So first of all, we got a couple of guest questions, you know, like we do for the students. So we're going to do for you as well. So our first question today is, within the content department, of which Elvira is the lead lady, there are a couple of teams. Can you guess how many teams? There you go. You can already write it. Let's see. How does it come up? Okay, start.
Let's wait a couple of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you guys should be able to see the poll in the chat box. Let's see, how many teams do you think? And we should be able to see the results anytime now. Okay. Can you see the results, Adrian?
Yeah, we've got 4 at 40%, 5 at 36%, 3 at 20%, at 2 at 2%. Oh, we got no lots.
Good guesses.
Okay, let's show and tell. Oh no, there's still some more coming in. Okay. So there are 4 main departments, okay? Animation team. So they do all the wonderful GIFs and the videos for the children before the lessons. Then there's the methodology team, okay, that Simon and I lead up. We do all the lessons and other content. We do a lot of projects with a lot of other departments, including TOPS, who's our favorite department, of course. And then we've got the technical team, so that all your D&Ds work well and the audios are good. So they have to check every lesson. It's quite a big thing because of the platform. And then we have art and design, and they also do the GIFs and they design the beautiful lessons that we have. So that's all of us. Maybe one day they'll come and meet you too. Okay, the next teaser is Helena. Okay, a lot of us are teachers. You already know 2 of us. But how many do you think in the methodology department are also Novakid teachers. So many are teachers as well, but not at Novakid. But how many do you think are at Novakid? Okay, let's see. What do you think?
Drum roll.
Okay, there's already 84 there. Oh, yeah, no, that was the last one.
You and Simon. Victoria. You see you.
Yeah, Simon and I are the longest serving. In fact, I don't know, just you've been around a long time too, haven't you?
Right, shall we reveal?
In fact, I saw Monique's here as well, and her and I almost started at the same time. Was that a teaser?
Yes, sorry. I couldn't wait. Shall we reveal?
Oh, no, go. Then it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You know, I'm sorry, we have people here today are too clever because we got over 40% for the correct answer for both this question and the question before. Well done, guys. So now you know a little bit more about us. Okay. So to kick off, we decided to start with some of your questions because, as usual, we asked you, what would you like to know? And we want to address those. But obviously, there are over 2,000 teachers. Not to say that we got 2,000 questions, but there were a lot of questions. So it was very difficult. So we kind of just had to randomly dip and get the questions because otherwise, you know, some people are going to feel that they favored, and we'd hate that to happen. And alert, there are prizes in this webinar. And even on the slide, you will see some not so great British spelling. I hope you've all spotted it. So at the end, there will be prizes that Elena will organize for those who spot all the mistakes. So sorry that we can't address everybody's question. And I think that all of you know that you're very important to us because we are forever bugging you for your opinion. And we thank you very, very much for completing our surveys. It really means a lot to us. And we really do make a lot of changes based on those surveys and on your opinion. So please just keep it rolling in. Okay, let's move to those questions. So number one. Joss is going to cover this in part of his presentation, and that is, how do you come up with inspiration? What steps do you take? What advice? How to start? So that one, I'm very pleased to say there's a whole presentation on that Joss is going to do. And he's put together a great step-by-step of how a lesson is created. And the inspiration is just a personal thing, I think, for each one of us, because I think everybody here, all four of us, have at some stage in our lives created a lesson or lessons in Novakid. So I think for all of us, the inspiration is different. Sometimes you have to write a lesson about something you know very little about, like when we had the soccer. You know, we had those 4 soccer clubs. Wow, that was a challenge. But yeah, we get it. We do the research. Okay, so number 2. A teacher's concerned that they're finding the level 1 curriculum more challenging than the first one. We understand that all children are unique and they're all at different levels. The reason why we've added more vocabulary and more exercises, and we hope that they can be still differentiated to accommodate the struggling children and the 4-year-olds, the few that there are. But basically the feedback from parents was there's too little. They want more for their children. They want their children to learn more. So all the departments have done a lot of surveys with the parents, and that is what we based it on. So we do hope that you'll still be able to accommodate your struggling students. Okay, number 3 and 4 go together. And this is very interesting because as we were going through the questions, some of them addressed the same issue, but from opposite angles. So I think it's nice for you guys to see what each other say. So one of the teachers loves it because the child is not intimidated and it can use its own imagination and the few words that it knows, and it can make its own story. Whereas another teacher's student just looks at them blankly like, okay, I don't know what you want. So that is where we rely on you to draw it out of the student, to be either soft and coaxing or dramatic and like, yeah, get it excited to talk about it. So we do rely on you for a few of those things because basically you are the ambassadors of our content. So yeah, shout out to us if you want help on how to do it. Shout out to Tops. There are amazing people there with amazing ideas. But if you need ideas, just ask us. Okay. So number 5, we are halfway through. How do you ensure that your lesson content aligns with current language learning standards and best practices? Again, we almost have a whole presentation for you. And that would be, yeah, Kate's smiling. That is Kate's scope and sequence, okay, which is based on careful alignment, because that's what we advertise on our websites. And we like to rather stick to exactly what we've promised our clients, okay? So that's what we do. But we don't only do that, and we don't stick to it verbatim, because there are, like in every industry, there are improvements, there are innovations, and we all keep up to date with that. Everybody in the team is constantly doing extra learning. Olga just did an amazing, in fact, a teaching course that has brought a lot of insight into the content team. So we do that all the time. A lot of doing project management courses. Everybody is doing something. I think about 2 or 3 are doing their masters at the moment, all in pedagogy or languages. So that's how we keep up with best practices. I'm sure that you are putting through the questions, but we'll deal with them a little bit later because I've got more of your questions to answer. So Elena, can we go to number 6, please? I love this one. Okay, I had to put this one in because this was my favorite. Can we make small changes? Can we like introduce our own stories? And that was so wonderful to see. As I say, you're the ambassadors. The lessons are your guideline. It's your plot, your plan, but you can do with it what you like. You know what the outcomes are, what the competencies are. You know what's going to be in the unit review, what the child has to pass. But how you do it, it's if you take that lesson and make something different out of it, absolutely wonderful. Just watch that your children are passing all the time, and that's wonderful. Loved that. I loved it that you were actually putting in your own individual, unique touch to the lessons. So yeah, we do appreciate that. Okay, number 7. What factors do we consider? Okay. So I spoke earlier about the surveys that we do with parents and with you guys, and we take all of those factors in as well. I think to take a child and just take its age and slot it into a level is really, really difficult. The other things when we make content that we consider is cultural diversity, ability, differentiation, and these things will all be spoken about later on in the presentations. We have to consider taboos. We have to consider the regions that we teach. In basic, we global. So the lessons have to be respectful and a little on the conservative side. You know, so what is okay in Spain may not necessarily be okay in Turkey or in Korea. So we do have to do that. It's one of the things that our debates in the content department revolve a lot around. Is this okay? Can we keep this? We've got rid of whole lessons because we felt that they were too controversial. And bearing in mind that because so many of us teach, we come across this in our own lessons as well, even when we don't get it from you. Okay, so various strategies. Okay, so you may have seen the pop-ups that we're putting in there, but we are trying to make the lessons engaging by adding more and more interactive elements, okay? But there's a lot more about this in the presentation, so I won't do a total spoiler here. Okay, number 9. I'd love to know the possibility of having different levels within level. Ah, yes, okay. This was an important one to address. And again, as teachers, we see this ourselves. You know, I have an 8-year-old doing VE and I have an 11-year-old doing level 2. So it takes almost a year and a huge amount of resources, which you'll see just now, to create content. So to have different types of content in one level is extremely costly. It's not out of the question, and we would like to diversify, but at the moment it's step by step and nothing is no for the future. And there were many more questions, great concerns, and I see that it's going, wow. The chat box, I love to see you guys engage. It's like having those students that are so engaged. They are awesome to teach. So thank you guys, and I'll end off at the end with any questions you may want to ask. And to my very esteemed colleague, as they say in the classics, without further ado, Kate, I shall hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you.
Just a few words before we pass the floor to Kate. Thank you very much, Adrian, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Insightful answers. I just wanted to remind our teachers as well that there's another superhero behind the screen today moderating the chat, and that's Lisa, our teacher development manager. So she will be collecting all the questions that are going in the chat box. Please feel free to continue submitting them. If we have time to address them in the end of this session, we will do so. If not, as usual, they will be posted in our upcoming newsletter on Teacher Portal. So don't worry, we'll try to address all of your questions. Thank you very much for being so active in the chat. And yes, shout out to Lisa. And now I am passing the floor to Kate. Let me switch the presentation real quick. Okay. There we go.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lena. Okay, so hello everyone again. So I'm Kate, and I'm going to be talking through the scope and sequence project that I've been working on for probably the last 5 months now. So without further ado, let's start. So firstly, you might have questions to do with what is the scope and sequence project and why are we doing it? So let me try and answer that straight away. So basically, the scope and sequence is a refresh of Novakid's curriculum. So don't panic, we're not tearing everything up and starting all over again. We're just refreshing our curriculum, making sure that it's includes everything that it needs to, and that it's perfectly optimized and it does everything we need it to. And there are a number of reasons why we're doing this as well. So we're doing it to make sure that the scope and sequence, our curriculum, is aligned to KEFRA, to its most recent standards, in particular the ones set out in around 2020. We're also doing it to ensure that the students that study with us on our platform are able to achieve their required or their desired proficiency levels. So if they're wanting to achieve A1, A2, B1 level, then they can achieve those levels when they study with us. And then also what we're doing, the reason we're doing this is that we want to make sure that the curriculum is strong, that it's got a long-term future, and that it covers everything we need to. So our curriculum is continuing to develop and grow alongside the needs of our students. So one thing to mention about the scope and sequence project as well is that the games, the stories, and the interactivity that we included in the Magic Academy updates are still going to be included in these lessons. We're not removing that, they're still going to be there. We're just taking a look with fresh eyes at the curriculum to make sure everything's there that we need it to be. Okay, and also very briefly as well, part of the reason why we're looking at the curriculum again is because of the wonderful feedback that we get from you guys, from our teachers. We get lots of comments about the curriculum, things that could work a bit better, particular struggles around pain points in our curriculum that we could develop or change. So we're very careful to listen to your feedback and to make sure that whatever you're suggesting, we'll try and include in our curriculum refresh as well. So that's everything for that. Thank you. Great. Okay, so what have we been working on so far? Okay, so as you would imagine, we've been amending stuff as we go. One of the main things we've been looking at is changing the vocabulary sets, so adding some new vocabulary in, but also amending the vocabulary sets that we do currently have. So for example, in level 0 and level 1, the curriculum amendments that we've completed so far, we had a number of vocabulary sets that were based around animal vocabulary, but these weren't necessarily the ones that typically were aligning with KEFRA. So we just tweaked those vocabulary sets slightly to make sure that we're fully aligning with KEFRA there. And then we're also including a greater variety of secondary vocabulary items. So for example, originally our level 0 and level 1 curriculums, we didn't really cover adjectives particularly well. So those kinds of parts of speech have been included in much higher numbers in our curriculum redevelopment. So yeah, just to make sure that we're covering a broader variety of vocabulary that students can use in the lessons to enrich the vocabulary sets that they have. And I have a quick question for the teachers. So what are the vocabulary sets that you wish could be included in our new curriculum? Is there anything you would really like to see in our curriculum? If you have any ideas, please post in the chat, because we'd love to see them, we'd love to hear them, and maybe they'll be included, you never know.
Let's see, don't be shy, guys. Give us your suggestions.
Oh, okay. Push and pull, I like that. More shapes, okay. More vocabulary for action words, okay, great. Okay, it's interesting that the one I see about action words, we have actually included more verbs in the vocabulary sets as well, because that was one thing I noticed we didn't cover enough of originally in the curriculum. So that's really nice to see that we're getting that. Parts of the body and face, okay, that's represented. Action words, again, that's great. Well, it's already there, so that's wonderful to see. Classroom instructions, that's a good one. Okay, free talk slides still, okay. More verbs for lower levels, action words, yeah, that seems to be a popular one. That's great, we already have them, so I'm so pleased.
A little survey for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all your wonderful suggestions there. Please keep them rolling. I'll keep looking at them as we go, but oh, kitchen utensils. Okay, yes, wonderful. We do have things like that. Okay, so that's great news. So thank you everyone for responding. I'll keep looking at them and I'll make sure I check during after the presentation as well. But just moving on then. So obviously vocabulary sets we've been amending, but as you would expect, we've also been amending the grammar as well. So in level 0, largely we've tried to simplify some of the grammar that was there, because there was a lot of grammar that was being covered in the level 0 curriculum. So we've just scaled it back a little bit and simplified to give students enough chance to really grapple with some of those basic grammar structures that they need to at that level. And then in level 1, what we've tried to do is actually add a few more additional level appropriate grammar as well, grammar structures. So things that we've added, for example, are things such as present continuous. We've got some very simple irregular plural nouns, some gerunds, and a greater number of third person singular verbs in level 1. So that's just some of the changes you can expect to see in the lessons that are coming up. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So also, as you would expect, we've been looking at the phonics and blending. Now, the changes that we've made here are not removing anything from the phonics or blending sections, but merely restructuring what we have. So in level 0, we had some kind of large phonics review lessons. So what we've tried to do is reorganize and group the phonics into smaller sets. So we don't now have lessons where like 10 or so phonics are being reviewed. Instead, phonics are reviewed in very small sets that the students usually get confused by. So for example, we'll review things like s and z together, and things like l and r, which would be particularly useful for our Korean and Japanese students who struggle to differentiate these, and things like w and v. So in level 0, just we'll review phonics, but they're in smaller sets. And then in level 1, the order of the phonics has been restructured throughout the levels. So if we go to the next slide, you should be able to see what I've done with the phonics in level 1. So this is the roadmap for the entirety of level 1. So what you'll see here is what I've done is I've reviewed the short vowel sounds at the beginning in unit 1. Then students go through reviewing basic consonant sounds, and then as the level progresses, they get more difficult phonics digraphs. So the k, the fl, the z, and the qu sounds are introduced much later. So there's a little bit more of a logical progression throughout the level, which I hope will really help students to grapple with the phonics. So again, I've got a really quick question for you guys. Which sets of phonics do your students usually struggle with in level 1? And are there any tips you have found for teaching these difficult phonics, things that you can that will help the teachers with these phonic sets? So what phonic sounds do your students struggle with in level 1?
I see that Adriana already mentioned that many Korean students struggle with b, v.
B, v, yes. Oh, okay. Oh yes, the long vowel sounds. I can see, yeah, hard and soft C. Yeah, that's a tough one. I, okay, v and wa, which yeah, we have covered. Great. Okay. Okay, so it seems there's not really much consensus. I can see that there's the CK and the K and the long vowel sounds seem to be quite prominent here, which I would expect. But yeah, so what we've tried to do throughout the level as well is we repeat the phonic sounds throughout. So they will do a set of phonics together, and then they will review them later in the level. So they will get a little bit more reviewing of the phonics throughout the level, hopefully, so they can really nail down those sounds that they struggle with. Okay, so I think with the phonics, let's maybe move on. Thank you so much for responding, guys. That was great. Okay, so okay, moving on to reading. So what we've tried to do in particular with level 1 is we've taken a kind of dual approach. So in level 1, what we've done is we've added I've called them assistive, sorry, audios to the lessons to make sure that students are introduced to new grammar and vocabulary for the first time with audio support. So they're not just expected to just be able to read straight from the first lesson. They are introduced to the grammar and vocabulary with assistive audios. So those students that struggle with reading can listen to the audios to get a little hint as to how they need to produce the sounds, or the new words or the new grammar. And then also in tandem, we've also increased the number of simple reading activities throughout the levels. So in the third lesson of each unit, students will have a more extended reading practice. And this again was kind of developed through feedback from our teachers. So we had a lot of teachers who would comment that their students really wanted more reading practice throughout level 1, but also contrastively, we had similar numbers of teachers saying that they felt their students really struggled with reading at this level. So this is kind of why we've taken this dual approach. So we've got the assistive audios there for students who really need help with the reading and a bit of extra support, and also some more advanced activities for those students who really are a bit stronger with their reading abilities and their skills. Okay, and I thought visually I'd present you with a few slides from our lessons just to show you what this looks like in the lessons. So here we've got an example of one of the assistive audio slides. So this is from one of the first lessons where students cover I like, and they're practicing this with the main vocabulary there. And then on the next slide, you will see another example of a more extended reading slide. So students can practice with the assistance of the teacher there if they need the teacher's support. Okay. Okay, and then I think this may be one of the final slides. We've also made sure to add writing activities into our level 0 lessons and our level 1 lessons. So in level 0, what we've tried to add is letter tracing slides to make sure that as students are practicing the phonics, they're also practicing the attendant writing that goes with that phonic sound. So the P, the B, the V, whatever it might be. And then in level 1, we've also added word tracing slides and spelling slides because originally our curriculum didn't really cover writing skills too heavily. So we've just made a bit more of a concerted effort to make sure we've considered that students are developing their writing abilities throughout their time with us. And then we've also amended, sorry, do you mind if we go back? Sorry, thank you. We've also been amending the speaking activities as well. So in level 0 and 1, there's a greater variety of speaking activities throughout. And hopefully by the end of level 1, students will have covered a greater variety of question forms, such as WH questions, B questions, and do questions. And they should be more comfortable with answering these questions using short form answers and knowing what these questions actually mean as well. Okay, thank you so much. And again, here are some examples from the lessons. So this is one example of our spelling slides. So this is for P's, and the students will be able to click on the audios and it will tell them which letters belong in which of the boxes. So it will say P, E, A, S, and the students are should be writing the letters below there. And then on the next slide, you'll see an example again of one of our word tracing exercises. So students are see the word model at the top, they can trace the word below, and then they're expected to produce it in the bottom row there. Okay. And then, yes, okay, so I think this may be, yep, that's it. So the final point that we wanted to bring up today was to do with spaced repetition, sorry. So throughout our level, what we've tried to do is make sure that the primary vocabulary and the grammar is now recycled throughout the level more consistently. So we came up with a plan to space out repetitions throughout the level. So students learn their vocabulary and grammar, and then they are reviewed later in the level in the hopes that they will be able to retain these previously taught items. And what we've done is we've tended to combine old vocabulary with new grammar and old grammar with new vocabulary. So it's not repetition, it's not rote repetition, it's using the old items in a new and fresh way so that they won't get bored. I do have a quick question for the teachers here. So do you think repetition is important in our lessons, and why or why not? It's a big question. It may be a controversial question. Great. Yes, we've got lots of yeses. Yes, retention. That's wonderful. Great. Okay. Well, we seem to be overwhelmingly yes. Maybe I should have done this as a poll, yes or no. But this is good to see. Oh, okay, we have some contrasting here. Students hate it. Okay. Okay, I think Repetition, I think, is one of those controversial things, but I think it's the way in which repetition is dealt with in our lessons. So obviously rote repetition of exactly the same vocabulary items with exactly the same grammar can be problematic. You know, I've no doubt students would not enjoy that. But if we use old grammar with new vocabulary, then there's some freshness there. So hopefully that kind of repetition will make it interesting to the students. So thank you so much for your responses there. Okay, and I think this might be, yeah, the last slide. Oh, okay, so where are we then with the scope and sequence project, and when will it be finished? Okay, so currently curriculum amendments have been completed for level 0 and for level 1. Level 2 is currently in progress and it should be completed around the end of March. And then the scope and sequence for levels 3 and 4 will be completed around the end of June. So they haven't been started yet, but that's roughly when they'll be finished. And just a quick note here as well, is that that's when the dates that I've listed on this slide are to do with when the scope and sequence will be finished, completed, but that's not necessarily when the lessons will be released. The lessons will take a little bit of time to catch up with the scope and sequence. Okay, so yes, I think that's me. That's everything.
Thank you very much, Kate. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm glad to see that it's sparked up a lot of discussion in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much for your feedback, guys. That's great.
All right, moving on. Let us switch to Joss's presentation, who's going to take us through the magical process of content creation. Just a few seconds. There we go.
Great, thank you, Leanna. And thanks, Kate, that was amazing. Quite a tough act to follow that. I'll do my best. Let's start with a poll, shall we? So if we go to our next slide, we've got a question for you. How long do you think it must take to create a single Novakid lesson? I think there's a link you can follow, or you can use a QR code.
Yes.
How long do you think is involved in the process?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Joss, for interrupting you. Guys, you can scan the link, scan the code that you see on the screen, or you can follow the link that will be in the chat shortly. And meanwhile, I'll switch to Menti platform, where we will be able to see the results of this poll.
Awesome. There's some interesting comments in the chat box while we were waiting as well. 2 to 3 months, 5 months, 2 weeks. Interesting suggestions.
Hey, those of you who
Is that 12 answers so far? 13. I think Adrian got 104 answers or something. I'm definitely not settling for fewer than 100. Months, 5 months, 2 months for one lesson. Remember, we're talking about one lesson here. 32 answers. Okay, let's see. What were the results? Majority think 2 months. So the pattern seems to be you think it's quite a time-consuming process, one that takes quite a little while. So we're not going to reveal the answer straight away. We're going to take you through the process, and we're going to ask the question again at the end of the presentation. We'll just see if there's any movement on those answers. But the majority seem to be suggesting at the top end, 15 days, 2 months, or maybe even more. Okay, then. So let's move on to the next slide. Thank you, Leanna. So let's imagine you'd been asked to design a Novakid lesson from scratch. Okay, where would you actually begin with a task like that? Okay, so you'd probably look a little bit like this guy for at least the first couple of days. But serious question, where would you get started with designing a lesson? Maybe you could share your answers in the chat box. Crying, yeah, that sounds familiar.
right.
Learning goals and objectives, good suggestion. A bit more crying. Feeling stuck? Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, think of a theme, a topic. Like planning a party or a wedding. That's an interesting one. Illustrations, layout. Think of a story first. Oh, okay. What level it is? Yeah, obviously we'd have to think about the level. Staring at the wall. We'd start in 1920 at a typewriter. Start with brainstorming. Okay, some really good suggestions there. Thanks ever so much, everybody. Okay, so where does a lesson writer in the content team actually begin? Let's take a look. All roads in Novakid lead to scope and sequence for all the reasons that Kate highlighted in her presentation. So why is scope and sequence so important to a lesson writer? Well, it's scope and sequence that provides the structure for the whole Novakid curriculum, really. This is what ensures we're aligned to the CEFR framework. It's the scope and sequence that ensures that our students move through the levels in a progressive, step-by-step way. So the starting point for any lesson writer really is the scope and sequence. And the scope and sequence it dictates certain elements that have to be incorporated into a lesson. So, for example, the lesson writer will see from scope and sequence what grammar they've got to put into the lesson, what phonics they've got to put in, what vocabulary's got to go in there, what competencies. We're going to talk a bit more about competencies later on, but what competencies need to be taught and then checked. There was a lot of love in the last presentation for the scope for the spaced repetition. So again, that is dictated really by the scope and sequence. So that is the starting point for the lesson writer, and we can consider it almost like a list of ingredients. You know, and the lesson writers are given these ingredients they have to put into the lesson. The challenge for them then, though, is to get that what is essentially a dry list and turn it into something that is engaging. Turn it into something that will actually hook our students in. So how do they go about that? Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next job is to try and turn this into a pleasing and engaging and enjoyable whole that the student can get totally immersed in. Now, you've probably realized, and I think there are a few comments to this effect in the chat box, that we incorporate a lot of storytelling elements into the way we teach at Novakid. We've got the story size at the beginning, which a lot of you have commented on, but really threaded throughout everything we do at Novakid, we've got these elements of storytelling. And so a lesson plan, it looks visually a bit like a storyboard, doesn't it? Because that's kind of what's involved for the lesson writer. You might have heard of something called a narrative arc. I don't know if you've come across that idea in storytelling, but when we tell children stories, they usually follow this like curved arc. So we start the story off gently with an introduction, and then it builds up gradually until it reaches this point of like peak intrigue or tension even. This is where there's the challenge or the problem that needs to be solved. And then we introduce a resolution and we tie things all off nicely in the conclusion. So the child is taken through this gentle arc, really. So that's storytelling, but we kind of do the same thing with a Novakid lesson. We bring the student in gently. We introduce them to the lesson, maybe get their creative juices flowing a little bit with some songs and warm-up activities, spark their imaginations a little bit with the stories until we gently build them up to this sort of peak challenge, the main body of the lesson, where they really are being pushed to their limits in terms of what they're capable of doing. Really, we're pushing them to the edge of what they can do, and then beyond a little bit into some new territory. So they spend the main body of the lesson being challenged quite highly, but we can't leave them up here. We can't bring them up here and then say, right, that's the end of the lesson. So we have to bring them back down with some cool down slides, maybe a goodbye song. You've probably noticed there are extension slides that are a little bit more gamified. than the tasks in the main body of the lesson. And all of this helps to sort of bring the student back down again. And so what you end up with is this 25-minute long, what should be quite a nice, pleasing arc of challenge. Okay, if we could have a look at the next slide, please. The lesson writer also has to think about what features they need to incorporate into the lesson to make it truly engaging. So that'll be where they bring in things like songs, audio recordings, artwork and GIFs. And all of that is kind of conceived really by the lesson writer and then outsourced. So we've got specialist people working within the team, and we've got specialist outside agencies that we sometimes have to commission this stuff from. So all of that has to be conceived by the lesson writer, requested, and then put into the lesson. So that is a very simplified really idea of what is involved in the lesson writer's role. So having planned the story out in that sort of storyboard style, having brought in all these extra features, put them all together, the lesson is now more or less complete. It's time for some checks. So if we have a look at our next slide. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, maybe one back would be great.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Okay, so it's time for the lesson to be checked. Could you, in the chat box, give us some ideas? What sort of checks do you think would be necessary at this point? What kind of checks do you think would be necessary before we can put this out onto the platform? Proofreading, yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, spelling and grammar. Any other ideas? Audio checks, yeah, interesting. Audio elements are working. Yeah, so kind of like technical checks, really, aren't they? Title slides. Yeah, the flow of the lesson. That's a really good point. Coherence. Yeah. Clarity of audios, correct grammar. Brilliant. Yeah, really good suggestions. So all of the things that you've suggested are the things we're checking for. So the first check that would be done would be an S&S, or a scope and sequence alignment check. So we've had the scope and sequence, we've used it to design the lesson. Well, then we just check back. Did we actually manage to fill that brief? Have we actually aligned this lesson to the scope and sequence? And then it will go for an editorial check where we look at things like the flow of the lesson. Most of the proofreaders in the team are also teachers. So it really involves getting your teacher's head on and trying to imagine delivering this lesson in a live setting to a student, and making sure that it is engaging, that it flows nicely, that it's logical, coherent, that it follows that present, practice, produce model that you've been trained in. And then once that's at that point, there's quite a lot of back and forth between the editor and the lesson writer until everybody's happy with the end result. That's when it will go through for that final proofread, where we're checking that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. Then we move on to design team. And the design team's job is really to make it look lovely. So they might take something like this slide, which is a sketch made by a lesson writer, which gives the idea, but obviously it can't go out looking like this. So they'll turn it into something lovely and beautiful. They polish it, make it look slick and professional. And then finally, it will be passed on to our tech genius team. Yeah, so they do the really clever stuff. They make sure everything works really. So you mentioned there are lots of interactive features like the drag and drop slides, the GIFs, a lot of audios. We've also got those pop-ups like, is the student struggling? Yes, no. Depending on the answer, it will take you to a different part of the lesson or even a different lesson. All of that is done by the tech team who make sure everything works. So yeah, that's the final check really. So now you've taken this whistle stop tour through the lesson creation process. Let's ask that same question we asked at the beginning of the presentation. How long do you think is involved in creating a single Novakid lesson? Most of you guessed quite high to begin with, actually. So I was a little bit surprised, pleasantly so, because most of you guessed maybe 15 days or longer. What do we think now? I'm going 10 days. Oh, wow. Everybody thinks a little bit less now. All right. Okay. That's not what I was expecting, but that's interesting. We're getting a mixture of 10 and 15 days. Well, the correct answer is 15 days. We try and wrap this up in about 15 days. And obviously, all of us have got multiple lessons on the go at any one time. But if we were to follow that one lesson through from start to finish, we're looking at a 15-day turnaround. Yeah, nice job with those answers. Thanks, everybody. So I guess just to conclude, the final step really in this content creation process is the one you and I and Adrian are all involved in, and that's the delivery. And I'm biased because I'm a teacher and my heart is in teaching really, but my personal opinion, and I'm sure this will be shared with many of my colleagues, is this is the crucial part. So you can have the best tools in the world, but if they're in the hands of an unskilled craftsperson, nothing beautiful or useful is going to be created. So we're doing our best to create quality tools that you can really work with, but ultimately it's all down with the skill and the professionalism of the way it's delivered by the teachers. These are the ones that are really making the impression on these young minds. So yeah, this is the final and arguably the most important step in the process. So thank you all for working together on this.
Thank you very much, Joss. Amazing presentation. Thank you for walking us through all the steps, through everything it takes to create truly unique content. I believe we have truly unique content that makes the experience for students just fantastic. And thank you guys again for being active in the chat. We see all the comments and we see all the questions. Lisa is carefully collecting them. I really do hope that we will have some time to address them, but again, do not worry, we will make sure that they are covered in our upcoming newsletter. And for now, let me pass the floor to Olga, who's going to tell us about unit reviews, extra practice lessons, and needs improvement exercises.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everybody again. I was very pleased to listen to my colleagues, and I was reading the chat at the same time. So thank you for being so active and supportive of us. That really helps. I'm worrying a bit because I'm going to talk to you about something which is actually like the backbone or the skeleton of our content, and there may be some terms, some kind of terminology, but I will try to walk you through gently. And so let's just dive into it. So the questions are, how do we track our students' progress, and what helps us understand if our students are struggling or if they are able to take up more complicated programs? So the answer is the magic word competency, a competency. This is the word that we really like in our content team, and we have a short version of this word. It's called comps, and this is the magic word that everybody new who comes to content learns very quickly. And at first, this from the inside, this system looks very complicated because it has been worked on for a long time, and it has been designed in a very thorough way, and we are still continuing to improve this competency system. And before we dive into it, just let me ask you a quick question. How many competencies do you think we have at present? So you can give just a rough number, like for example 5, 10, or more than 10. Just throw your suggestions. Let's have a look. You can write in the chat, just in the chat box. I see some answers coming. 15, 5, 6. Yeah, 15 and more. More than 20. Wow, a lot. Yeah, that's a nice answer. Good. So we have quite a span there. Yeah, a lot, definitely a lot. Thanks, guys. Thank you for your suggestions and for the participation. Well, at present we have 18 competences, But as I have already mentioned, we are currently working on the improvement of our competency system, so there might be some slight changes, but yeah, I don't think that we will have more than 20, so the number should always be around 15 to 20. Okay, so let's move on. And so the big question is, why do we even need these competencies? What they are there for? And I have pointed out very important areas, and let me just explain to you why we need them and how they help us. So first of all, the system helps us to support teachers, support students and their parents. What is meant by that? From the teacher's point of view, of course, when you have a lot of students, it's very hard to keep in mind each and everyone's individual progress. And when you have a list of competencies, when the program gives you the material which is assigned to the student, of course, it is much easier, especially we know that our teachers have quite a high workload and they teach lots of students. Then from the students' point of view, of course, we need to offer them the material, the content, which will be up to their level. For example, with the help of competencies, we are able to understand whether they are struggling or whether some things are easy for them and adapt the curriculum. Of course, with competencies, teachers get an opportunity to be more objective in their assessment. I mean the assessment of such things as, for example, just the vocabulary unit checks or the grammar structure checks. And when it comes to really important skills, such skills that present whether the students are able to to use the language, then of course we believe that only teachers are able to assess students in the best way. So let's move on. We are a data-driven company and we truly believe in data. I think that we are the fanatics of it, and we collect lots of data in order to see how our students are doing, how our teachers are doing, and the data which we collect from the competencies really help us to see the whole picture. So, for example, we can see the picture as a whole, like the tendencies in different students based on their age, based on their, for example, region, based on the level, and we can break this down into some smaller parts using some filters. It helps us with solving some cases. For example, if we see that students are struggling with some competencies, with some skills, then we are able to create more exercises to improve these skills. For example, we have special kinds of exercises which are called needs improvement. Maybe not the best name, but something that represents their aim. These are the exercises for the student to improve their skills, and they are available for students in their kids area. So we can automatically assign such exercises to those students who failed their particular competencies. Then also when we create our curriculum, when we create our scope and sequence, of course, we take into consideration the data taken from the competencies, and we're able to build our curriculum in a better way. Moving on, competencies help us build individual learning paths. Now, of course, we understand that the system is not ideal. It's not that perfect as we would like it to be, but still, we think that at this point it's pretty great. And now we have certain algorithms which automatically assign needs improvement exercises and extra practice lessons. So we're not doing this by hand, because if we want to expand, if we want to have more students, more teachers, we need to have some very smart, very comfortable algorithms which will do these things quickly. We are going to continue in this direction and develop our curriculum in a way that it is even more individualized. And just to give you a brief overview of our further plans, we're going to add more competencies into not only into our unit reviews, but into our regular lessons and extra practice lessons to be able to provide more support to you and your students. And let's move on. So if we think of competencies as skills, and they are basically skills which are broken down into just small bits, which we insert into our lessons and tag them in a special way. Our technical specialists are able to do this kind of magic and to have this like a system of curriculum. So they are subdivided into 4 basic categories, which are speaking competencies, reading, listening competencies, and writing competencies. At present, some of them are better represented in our curriculum, which are speaking, reading, and listening. Writing is less represented because we take into consideration the student's age and the limitations of the timing. But in our new scope and sequence, we're trying to make the balance, to create the balance so that all the categories are better represented. And just a quick question to you. So you see these categories. Which categories are the most challenging for your students? Where do you think, or where do you see they struggling? And which categories are the easiest and they just do things very easily and fast? Again, you can share your answers. Yeah, that depends on the level. Okay. Speaking, yeah, that's an expected answer. Yeah, reading competencies, yeah, speaking, reading and writing, yeah, yeah, easy reading and difficult speaking, yeah, speaking, yeah, that makes total sense. I think, yeah, speaking is always the hardest one. Yeah, and we believe that this is where we should put an emphasis, and we believe that with the help of these assessments, we will be able to provide better slides, better activities for your students to practice speaking. Okay, let's move on then. Another improvement and another innovation which has been introduced not so long ago are our interactive competencies, which are checked with the help of drag and drop slides, or as we call them, D&D mechanics. And as you know, they are checked without the help from the teacher, and the slide is deactivated for the teacher. When we did that, we had in mind, first of all, the question of objectiveness. Our students started getting more support. So they get needs improvement exercises, they're able to practice more, they get extra practice lesson, and we see that more students are actually staying with us, because there is a tendency to leave or to just give up when you have difficulties, and sometimes students are not, they are quite shy to just voice their difficulties. They just say that something is not interesting for them and it's boring, and they just stop coming to lessons. The system, of course, is not ideal, but we are working hard to improve it. For example, not so long ago, we had a round of these drag and drop slides verifications. So we worked very hard and we watched lots of videos to see how students and teachers are actually doing with the slides. And then based on our reviews, which were made by several people at the same time, we introduced different improvements into our slides. We are very grateful for your feedback, and we always take it into consideration. And now we are continuing to improve our drag and drop slides, and I hope that in the future they will become even better, and we will be able to just assess our students in a better way. And go into the next slide. And speaking of speaking competencies, just the same way I said it at our rehearsal, sorry. When it comes to the speaking competencies, we believe, of course, that only teachers are able to assess their student, because it's the most important skill, it's production. And of course, it cannot be assessed automatically or in an interactive way. So in this case, you see a student, you see how she or he performs, and you're able to give a very thorough review. And we believe that the D&D slides just help to take some load from you so that you focus more on the production skills and on the speaking competencies. Let's continue. Speaking of the support, I have already mentioned that we have certain kind of exercises which are available to our students. They are called needs improvement exercises, and they are the personalized homework. So after every assessment, after every unit review, our students get this kind of personalized homework. And our aim is to extend this personalization not only in the unit reviews, but also in the regular lessons. And the second way of support is extra practice lessons. We have a set of extra practice lessons depending on the level, which focus on particular skills like listening or speaking or grammar. And while doing these extra practice lessons, we also keep in mind our top competencies, like the top most difficult competencies. Our content creators always have this list of competencies and they check with it, and they make sure to add more practice, more support that will help students to develop these skills which are the most challenging for them. And let's have a look at the next slide. Yeah, I guess that what else I would like to show you are some examples of needs improvement exercises. At present, they are done only for non-speaking competencies. The students are able to play with the pictures, to move them around, to listen to the audios, to do some matching exercises. And now we have one exercise for one failed competency. We're working on improving that and hope to give more exercises to students who fail their competencies. And if we look at the next slide, here is just the basic overview of our system. At present, we have our threshold of 30%. This is the number which helps us assign extra practice lessons or needs improvement exercises to students. So if we see that the student fails more than 30% of the competencies, then we understand that more support is needed, and then we provide them with more opportunities to practice their failed competencies and improve them. And at our next slide, that's a very important part, speaking competencies. So we believe that even one competency failed in this category needs to be under special attention. That's why even if one competency, even if one skill is failed by the student, then the student gets an extra speaking lesson and has an opportunity to practice more, to speak more. And to finish with, I just want to show you some examples again of our needs improvement exercises, because you all deal with extra practice lessons and you all know them and you know how they are built and created. Now you know how the way they are created as well. And these are just some examples from the student area of our needs improvement exercises, which use different kinds of models, like different kinds of templates. And we use the same graphics from the lesson so that the student is able to go back to the grammar or to the vocabulary and have one more go and improve their failed skills. So I believe that's all from my side. I'm sorry, I was worrying a bit not to make it too complicated. So we'll be really happy with your suggestions or questions about our system, about our competency system, and just write them in the chat. I hope that we will be able to address all these things later. Thank you everyone for your attention, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Olga. I think that was really helpful. And I also see a lot of comments and a lot of questions that are similar. So if we can take a few minutes to just answer a few questions from the chat, because I know that we are slowly but surely running out of time. Sorry, guys, that we are moving for over an hour. That's a little bit, I know that some of you might need to go to your classes, but we'll try to address a few questions if you guys don't mind. And so I think the first ones, we can do them while it's still fresh. Regarding the drag and drop mechanics, I know that a lot of teachers are frustrated because sometimes the system is too sensitive, and the students might fail without realizing that it's quick, automatic. They don't have enough time to understand how it works, and so the competencies have failed without it actually being true to life, because the students cope with certain tasks. So, Olga, do you have anything else to comment on this? Can you guys hear me?
Sorry, I lost connection, so I missed the
Okay.
question.
Yeah, I thought someone disappeared and I realized it was you. Sorry. All right, so I was just mentioning the questions about the drag and drop mechanics. Yeah, I thought someone. That's all right. You guys are used to it. It's fine.
Sorry, yeah, there are so many. There is YouTube just because I was following the chat. Yeah, speaking of the D&D slides, we are aware of the issues with them. And as I have already mentioned, we are doing the round of verifications in which we are actually, we watch and we see what's going on when we write our reports. At present, while doing the project, the level 1 scope and sequence project, we are at the same time improving our D&D slides. Also, based on these reviews, we prepare our feedback to the technical team, because of course in this we need their support and we need their development. And they are always eager to help us. Like, for example, they solve some issues with the sounds, and they improve the slides, and they respond to the queries which are connected with the D&D slides. But at present, yeah, we believe that the main aim is to provide more objective assessment, which actually D&D slides do, and which is shown with the help of our data. We can see it. And to allow teachers to concentrate on the productive, on the skills which are actually more important, like the production skills. Yeah, but yeah, I believe that we are going to improve the system, and I hope that we will have maybe other interactive opportunities to assess our students even better. Yeah.
I was on mute. Thank you very much, Olga. I would like to address another question to probably Adrian, because it has something to do with one of the recent surveys that you've conducted. I know a few teachers mentioned about the length of the lessons, and that there's a lot of slides to cover, and there's not always enough time to go through all of them, and it's too many slides for 25 minutes. Could you please give us a little update on the...
I should have put that in the presentation. I forgot. Thank you. Whoever sent the message, thank you very much. Yes, we were concerned. As you know, I'm a teacher too, and I find the lessons quite long, but 80% of you said they're just right. And there was a lot of feedback. We got, I think, one of the biggest responses, didn't we, Elena, from teachers on that survey. Absolutely fantastic. And I also want to thank you for your feedback on the practice, you know, how much practice the kids have. And overwhelmingly, you also said, yes, you'd prefer more practice. But unfortunately, on the length of the lesson, 80% of you said you were very happy. It was just right. So you, whoever sent the question, is probably like me. You know, I could do like one lesson over three lesson times. But, you know, over the years, I have changed my ways and had to adapt to it. And I can adapt to it. And the first thing I do is make sure that I know exactly what are the pertinent things in this lesson. What do I have to cover? And without making it boring, without skipping like the fun parts. So I think that's where it comes in, just a little bit of tweaking of teaching style. And if 80% said, yeah, they can do it, then you, like me, are going to have to just kind of tweak the way you teach. It was quite surprising, but that's what it is.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Let's see what other questions we have. Maybe, okay, so there's a question. What if the student just likes to tell a story instead of using the book? Can we at least give the student a chance to speak? Is this okay? I think it would be great if either Joss or Kate answers the question from the teacher's perspective as well as the content creators.
I don't fully understand the question, if I'm entirely honest. The student wants to tell a story without looking at what book? Can anybody help me with that? I'm not quite sure.
The story slides, yeah.
The story slides. The story slides are a prompt, really. So they're designed to be taught in quite a free way and to be highly adaptable. It's an opportunity to use vocabulary that the student already has. It's not really designed as an opportunity to introduce lots of new language. It's more just helping them to practice using the skills that they've already got, really, in a fun and free way. It really is part of the warm-up. So yeah, it's highly adaptable, highly sort of individualized, really. And short, should be three minutes max.
Thank you, Joss. I hope that answers the question. Whoever's submitted that in the chat box, let us know if not. And maybe one more, and the rest we can cover in our teacher portal newsletter. Just a second, I'll go through. I think I saw a question asking, oh, right. If we'd like some suggestions for teaching some of the more challenging slides, how and to who would we reach out to? I would say always feel free to reach out to teacher operations, so teacher development team or methodologists are always willing to help. I'm sure that the content team would also be willing to help if there's a tricky question. I'm sure with their experience and expertise, they can also come to the rescue. Okay. Guys, I think we're going to keep the rest of the questions and answer them all in the upcoming newsletter. I apologize that it's already 22 past our finishing time. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Thank you, the amazing content team. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Joss. You guys are amazing. I'm really glad that teachers got to have a glimpse of what goes behind the scenes and what it takes to create such exceptional content. Why are you laughing?
So a few of the teachers, Lena, have recognized our voices from the recordings in the lessons. So actually you can hear Kate's voice, Adrian's voice, and my voice in some of the Virtual Explorer lessons. And a few of the teachers have just started commenting about it.
I didn't even know that. Yeah. So that's amazing. You really
are busted.
You really are jack of all trades. All right. On this very positive note, let's finish, sadly, let's finish our webinar. Thank you guys for attending. Don't forget to fill out the feedback form. It's linked in the chat box, and you will be seeing some handouts published on the teacher portal next Monday. We'll include some information from today's presentations about unit reviews, competencies, phonics roadmap, and many, many more. Thanks again. Hope to see you again soon. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Lisa. And especially thank
Yeah.
you to my team and to the teachers. You've been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.